Lady Luck is smiling. It's all in the cards.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my Twisted Fate guide. My name is Jammed, I'm an AD Twisted Fate main playing on the US service. In Season 12 I peaked at Diamond 1. My Season 12 goal is to reach Masters before the season ends. First things first, we'll go over the rune page options. I'm going to list 4 different rune pages and you'll just pick depending on your matchup. So we can start with the first rune page. It will be a lethal tempo setup with Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, and then into the second tree we take Resolve, we take Bone Plating and Overgrowth. And then the champions that you'll be using this against will look like Silas, Ari, Katarina, any assassin or short ranged burst type champion. We just use that against because it gives us the ability to trade back into them with the lethal tempo once we proc it. So if they engage to a full combo, let's say for example Silas, he engages on us with E and we start autoing back stun card, we get lethal tempo proc, he might try to disengage the fight, we just keep getting extra auto attacks off with the lethal tempo and we end up winning the trade since he can't 100 to 0 us. So on to the second rune page. This second rune page is a PTA setup with Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, second tree, Bone Plating, Overgrowth. So it's the exact same as the first but with PTA rather than lethal tempo. And you would just use this rune page versus champions that you want to play aggressive against and they don't have too much poke. So again, it's the similar champions that are listed on the first rune page. So it would be like the Silas, you can auto attack him freely. The Katarina, you get 3 autos. Maybe a Kassadin. Kassadin's probably the best champion you can use this against, as he can't really answer to the PTA proc. Well, unless he just runs away. But you can't really trade with you, so it gives you like free lane prio to run around with your jungle or just dominate your lane as a whole. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely not as safe option as the lethal tempo, but you can run it if you want to run the risk of, you know, losing extra range for the mid game from lethal tempo for the early damage on PTA for your lane. So the third rune page will be using lethal tempo, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, and then second tree will be taking Sorcery, Nimbus Cloak, and Celerity. You'll be using this rune page with Ghost, and you'll be running it into champions like Oriana, Victor, Xerath, any sort of mage that can just poke you during lane phase because you can't really trade back with them or you'll just lose the trade. So you want to just play safe during lane phase, farm the turret pretty much if they try to pressure. But if they don't pressure, then you just free farm, but if they do, which you most likely will, you just try to avoid skill shots, dodge skill shots on the turret, get as much CS as you can, call for ganks if they overextend, and then you'll be able to use Ghost to get the gold card off in the lane when your jungler comes and they can't really outrun you because you've got like 600 MS from Nimbus Cloak and Celerity, so it's usually a free gold card onto them and then they either die, or if they have like Flash and Barrier then they might live, but you get both summoners, so then obviously you just repeat the process. You'll have Ghost up before she does have Flash up or he has Flash up, and then you'll get the kill eventually. So you just try to create leads through playing with your jungler. I guess you could also roam to the river if you see an early skirmish or anything like that. If you have an early game jungler, try to play alongside him. So the fourth rune page is similar to the first setup. It's a lethal tempo, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, and then second tree we've got Resolve, Conditioning, and Overgrowth. However, you can swap out Conditioning for second wind if you want to get some sustain for lane phase, as you'll be versing mages and taking poke. It might actually help you sustain the lane. Now if you were running second wind and you wanted to get as much sustain during lane phase as you could, you probably want to run this with Teleport Flash. Next up, onto the summoner spells, and my most common setup that I use is Exhaust Flash. Now let's say the enemy team has a lot of AD threat, so if they have like a Z mid and a Kindred jungle, you definitely want to take Exhaust. So the second setup with summoner spells will be Ignite Flash. You can run this if you have a lot of kill potential in your lane phase, so maybe combine this with PTA, or if you're versing the healing champs such as Saros or Vladimir, then you definitely want to run Ignite. So for the third option on summoner spells, you can run Ghost Flash versus Mage Champions. We talked about that in the rune section too, and it gives you that playmaking ability to get your team ahead since you can't really win the 1v1 straight up, so you just look for opportunities to get yourself in the game. And lastly, for the summoner spell setup, you can run Teleport Flash, and most of the time you'll be using this against mages, but you can use it against any matchup where you just want to not fall behind in the game and stay up in XP, CS, and basically just survive the lane phase the best you can. Now onto the builds. My starting items are always a longsword and a refillable potion. Trinity Force build, and I would say this is the most balanced build for Twisted Fate as it provides a bunch of stats, so you get damage, health, ability haste, movement speed, and movement speed's really what ADTS needs for survivability as he is an immobile champion. But one thing to note is that it definitely adds consistency to the gameplay, which is key for climbing. And we'll just touch on the second item, which is the rapid fire cannon. So the reason why this is good on Twisted Fate is you get the extended range for gold cards, so when you're running around in mid game, you'll find yourself getting a lot of free picks, or even late game, free picks, easy gold cards. It's pretty high threat and the enemies have to respect it. The third item is Wit's End. It's a pretty insane item overall. It does a lot of damage, and it does a lot of damage through the passive also. And you get MR too, so if your enemy has any AP champions, it's legit like a no-brainer. Fourth item is Blade of the Ruined King. It's a great item for DPSing and it has lifesteal, so it can help you consistently pressure side lanes when you split pushing. So we got fifth item, Gunsoo's Rage Blade. It's pretty broken with TF because it stacks with his E passive, so you get a stat deck sooner than you would. So I think it's every 3 autos instead of 4. And then that obviously adds to your magic damage because stat deck does magic damage. So overall, when you add up the Wit's End, the Trinity Force, the Bolt with the Gunsoo's, you're doing quite a lot of magic damage compared to the the build being full AD. And then obviously the Bolt passive damage, I think that's AP classes AP damage too. So yeah. So you can build LDR if the enemy has a lot of armor stacked, or you can build Zonias if the enemy has a lot of hard engage and you need some survivability. The Zonias can help prevent your death. And then full mill if the enemy is full AD, it's can be pretty nice sometimes. And then obviously QSS or Merc Sim if you need the QSS. So if the enemies have like Lissandra or Lilia, Zoe, anything that you need to QSS, cleanse, whatever, then that's definitely the situational item. Now onto the boots. They're pretty simple. Most of the time you're going to be going Zerks since it adds just good damage, DPS, whatever you want to call it. And then Merc Treads, you can probably go Merc Treads if the enemy team has like 3 people with hard CC. So for example, if they have like a Sejuani top and a Mumu support and a Lissandra mid, then you will definitely want to go Merc Treads. You can go plated steel caps if you're into a full AD team, or just like a Z mid and you need survivability, then you go this plated steel caps. So the Trinity build is definitely the build I would recommend for everybody to use. However, I will list a couple of other builds that you can try out and determine which one you prefer for yourself. So the Kraken build is a full damage item, so it can lead to flip gameplay. You either go 10-0 or 0-10. Since it's like a full damage item, it doesn't provide any utility or survivability. But I would say it's definitely strong if you have a Lulu or a Yumi supporting you. Next up, the Shield Bow build. I would say this is one of the stronger builds. It was what I originally got to Diamond 1 with, and it provides lifesteal for lane phase, outplay potential with the Shield Bow passive, and then you can probably use it against champions like Silas, Katarina, Ari, champions where you survive the initial burst, proc the Shield Bow passive, and then you end up turning around on them and killing them through DPS. After that we got a Gale Force build. I've not really built this item too much, but the only time I was finding myself building it was when I was versing like a Nivea and she would have Q. I would have to use the Gale Force active to dodge a stun, otherwise you just get 100 to 0'd. Or then like other examples is when I want to use it aggressively. So whenever I'm matching a champion's dash, so if I'm into like a Corki mid, then you know I would use Gale Force to match the Corki dashing away, and then you usually get 3 kills with it. Now finally, for the last build that I've got to recommend, this is a build recommended from a viewer of mine. I tried it out and I would say it's a no mythic build, so you go Bork, Rapid Fire Cannon, Gwynthooth, Wit's End, and then you get Kraken last item. But I mean the game, you want the game to be coming over by like 3 or 4 items, like, so try to end the game way before then. But I'd say it's pretty good into short ranges. The matches you can bully. So if you get like a Galio mid, the Bork does well, or anything like that where the lifesteal can just give you easy advantages in the lane phase. Okay, so next up we have the matchups tier list, and it's just me showcasing where I think each champion ranks if they're easy, average, hard or extreme matchups. So for the first category we got easy champions, and it's the Sylas, the Katarina, Kassadin, all the ones in that list. And they're pretty much champions where you can just straight up win the 1v1s by through damage. So if you get a gold card off and just keep auto attacking, it's pretty easy to win the 1v1. And typically you can go like into these matchups, you don't need to go Trinity Force because they don't have range, so they can't bully you. So you don't really need the movement speed to dodge abilities or, you know, make plays for the team. You can straight up just win the 1v1 in mid as long as you're warding and respecting the jungler and not straight up inting. You can go like Kraken or Shield Bow versus these champions and you'll win a lot of the 1v1s. So next up we have the average champions, and these are champions where it can go either side. It just depends on how you play. So it's best to play smart versus these champions and not flip your game, because if you do get behind, it's usually one-sided matchups. As you can see, a lot of the champions on here are assassin-like, so you got the Yone, the Ori, Kiana, Akali, like they're all burst type champions for the most part. So just try to play smart, look for windows to get easy picks or kills in other lanes even. It doesn't have to be on mid, you can just respect, farm up, get first item, and then look to impact the map with your ultimate, and it's easy to put you in the lead. So next up we have the hard matchups, and these are pretty much matchups where it's majority mages, right? Yeah, mages or assassins, so similar again. You have the Lux, Xerath, LB, so Lux and Xerath, they just straight up outrange you, and you don't really have a way to fight back to them, like, because obviously you don't level Q, so all you can do is really auto attack gold card. And this is why I like taking Ghost into these first 2 matchups, what I said, since it sort of gives you a way to make a play into them rather than never having an option to stun card them, since they just straight up outrange you. You can always decide if they want to fight or not. And then obviously you got the Zed, he can just dodge your stun card. It's not very nice to verse. So lastly, the extreme category, we have Anivia, Victor, Fizz, Yasuo, Azir. I would say these are the only 5 that would really deserve to be in the extreme category, because I played a lot of games of ADTF, and these 5 matchups, there's just something else compared to every other champion on the list in the easy, average and hard categories. So Anivia, she just pretty much straight up counters you. She has a slow built into the kit. She has the stun, the not the wind wall, the wall bit to block where you're walking. Anytime she presses ult, she can just block you in, and she kills you every time pretty much. So there's not really a way to beat her unless you're playing with jungler. And then obviously even then it can be hard, because if their jungler's counter ganking, you just straight up lose both. Like you just get 2 for Ode or 2 for 1, and it's not very good. And then obviously you have champs like the Fizz, the Yasuo, they have the built-in stun card block. Again, if you've not got a gold card, you can't really beat them in the 1v1, as you use the gold card to win a lot of 1v1s. So yeah, that's it for the matchup tier list. It's not too in depth, it's just to give you a little bit of an idea of how the matchups play out. And obviously for the easy ones, you can be quite confident. You can limit test a lot of the time as long as you're respecting the jungler, and you'll always win. And then obviously with the hard ones, extreme, you probably want to take TP or Ghost, and obviously in the Fizz and Yasuo you can take Exhaust or Barrier. It's whatever you want, just take the defensive runes versus these, like, so maybe second wind or the bone plating, depending on which champions you're versing. And alongside this matchups tier list, I'm going to show you my top 10 matchups and the win rates for each champion that I'm versing. So as you can see from these win rates, we have positive win rates against a few of these top 10 played matchups, and we have a 75% win rate against the Kassadin, 68 against Katarinas, and 66 against Vexes. I mean, I don't think Vex is a good matchup. I think I just won through team play, or maybe just winner's queue. I don't really know with that one, because it is a hard matchup. Or well, not hard, just not easy. And then I would say out of these top 10 matchups, or the top 10 most played matchups, that the best ones are Kassadin, Katarina, and Silas. In that order. So first, Kassadin's the best, then Katarina's second, then Silas third. Early game. So what I found the most consistent way to play the early game was to basically play risk averse. So you're looking to play the early game pretty safe and passive, not looking to get too chaotic, just only taking stuff that is pretty much guaranteed to go in your favor. So either 2v1s if it's a skirmish in the river and you've got prio, let's say your enemy mid laners under turret farming, then you've got an obvious roam to grab, then just take that easy advantage. Don't do plays that are too risky, because when TF gets behind he's kinda useless, other than the fact that he has his gold card. So yeah, sticking to the safe gameplay, it will give you the best results overall. So depending on the matchup you're versing, the game plan will vary. So for example, when you're versing a short range mid, you win the 1v1s, so you want to play aggressive at times and look for the windows to take trades with the stun card, create HP leads, and set yourself up for the free kills. However, never play blind aggressive, otherwise you kind of flip your game. So sometimes you'll go 0 and 10, and then sometimes you go 10 and 0. It just depends on the enemy jungler if they punish you for playing aggressive. So always be sure to ward up and play to your vision. Mid game, go to a side lane and farm. You have pretty good 1v1 potential and you can play aggressive. Actively look for ultimate opportunities on the map. If you're weak and somebody in the team's pretty fed, you can just get rapid fire cannon second item and try to look for the picks. So all you do is group up with your team, play around your strongest player. You can force turrets and maybe Dragon Soul or Baron, and obviously create a win con through that. So late game, it's pretty much similar to the mid game. So you want to be pressuring the side lane and trying to get turrets, looking to set your team up for a free objective. So if you split push, you're gonna pull 2 to the bot lane. It usually sets your team up for a free Baron or a free Dragon, depending on which side you're on. And then obviously, and if the enemy team has a side laner like Jax or Fiora, they counter you pretty hard, so you probably won't be able to pressure the side lanes, as they'll just kill you if you try to get turrets or whatever. So all you can do in that situation is group up and get picks. So it's just going to be simple, gold card and rapid fire cannon set up onto the enemy carries. It should always result in a kill, and if they have somebody split pushing, you can use this as a window to easily take Baron. If you have 5v5 team fights, try to see who the biggest threat on the enemy team is, and obviously you try to stun card them. If you're fed, you can probably look to make plays and kill the enemy with pure damage. However, if you're not too fed, always try to play alongside your ADC and you just stun card whoever comes into the backline. So, extra tips. So first off, we've got the ability order, and you don't level Q until you have to, as it's pretty useless on the ADTF. So the only thing you need to remember is Emax into W and get Q whenever you really have to. So Emax, it will give you a lot of free attack speed. I think it's 40% attack speed when you get level 5 in E. So it's quite a lot and helps do a lot of DPS. So next up we've got the combos. Now obviously we don't level Q, and the only active combat spell we have is W, so all you need to do is lock in your stun card and press auto attack. So one thing I will note is target champions only. So whenever you're using gold cards, you want to toggle target champions only. So obviously you hit the champions, so it works out for diving. You won't hit the turret, or if you're in a minion wave, you won't hit the minions. So it's pretty useful, as gold card is really important for winning the 1v1s or getting picks. So go into your settings and definitely I recommend putting that on. So another tip I will say is ultimate tip. So whenever you're versing stealth champions, always remember that your ult can be used to reveal stealth. So if the enemy team have like a Shaco, you can press R in the mid game or late game, and it will help prevent him in a team fight, since you know you kind of deny his stealth. So your ADC is just gonna see where he is, where he's coming, and he can't assassinate anybody. And that goes for the same for any invis champ. So Evelyn, Kha'Zix, it's pretty much gonna counter them. Well, that's the end of the guide, guys. I hope it helps you Twisted Fate gameplay and helps you reach your end of season rank goals. If anybody's interested in any more TF gameplay, I will be live streaming on Twitch. You can stop by and say hello in the chat if you want. So yeah, thanks for watching, take care, and I hope you have a productive day.